Yeah, we back. We back. Now, welcome to part 3 of a brand new series entitled, Why Did the King of Haiti Murder the French Ambassador? And in this series, we're reading a book entitled, take a look up on the screen, Les Cris de la Conscience, written by the King of Haiti's right-hand man, Vastey the Baron. This book was published in 1815. And as you all know, back in 1814, the French government had sent some ambassadors, some diplomats, some envoys to examine and gather intelligence upon the state of the island during that time. And unfortunately for one of those men, they ended up losing their life when they went up to the Kingdom of Haiti to meet with King Henry Kristoff. Now, I had somebody come into the comment section of my last video, part 2, take a look up on the screen, and they said this: I do not know this story, but I'm sure that he did not murder him. And I responded, I said this: Franco de Medina was confirmed to be imprisoned and executed. This is not speculation. This is an official government document from 1815. Like you said, you don't know the story, therefore, you're simply making assumptions based on your limited knowledge of the situation. Sit back and enjoy the series. Now, I want to discuss that real quick before we jump back into the book. Now, like I said, this book came out in 1815. The French had sent those ambassadors, those diplomats, those agents to the country back in 1814, the year before. Now, the reason why this book came out was, number one, it was to provide a justification for the reason why the French ambassador Franco de Medina was murdered in the Kingdom of Haiti. Because it was a big controversial event during that time. I mean, you could imagine the European media, the international media was going crazy running with that story. Oh my God, the Haitian savages killed the European envoy. You know what I mean? So they had to put out this book to provide justification for why they decided to take the action they took. And in part 1, the author of the book, Vastey the Baron, actually laid out his case in defense of his nation, right? He said that the reason why we killed him was because X, Y, and Z. And we do it again. So no, this is not speculation. This really happened. This really happened. Franco de Medina, he was really killed for what he did. Because according to the author of the book, he said that the crime of espionage is punished by death. Anyways, let's jump back into the book. In part 1, the author of the book, Vastey, he actually laid out an amazing defense for the reason why the French ambassador was imprisoned and killed and executed. He laid out his defense perfectly, right? On part 2, they spoke about the internal division inside the country. As you already know, the country was divided into two governments, two rival states, the Kingdom of Haiti to the north, the Republic of Haiti to the south. And the contrast in the conduct of these two men in regards to the French ambassador was actually very interesting, because the officials of the South, the Republic of Haiti, were actually very friendly and diplomatic. You know, the mulatto generals who controlled the South, they were very diplomatic towards the French ambassador, very friendly, did not hurt him, didn't kill him. But the dignitaries to the North, the officials who controlled the North, they were very hostile towards the French ambassador and imprisoned him and killed him for the crime of espionage. And the author of the book, Vastey the Baron, he was very upset with the generals of the South because they did not follow the same action, right? How come you didn't kill the French ambassador when he came to your country? He was very upset. So anyways, man, let's jump back into the book, man. Now, if you watch part 1 and 2, then you remember Vastey had accused Pétion, the leader of the South, of high treason for the fact that he was friendly and diplomatic towards the French ambassadors. And he said he's actually going to prove it in this book. Now, like I said before, I'm reading this book along with y'all, right? You're getting my live reactions, my thoughts as I'm reading it. Now, let's continue. Let's pick up where we left off at. Vastey went on to say, to give yourself a fair idea of the state in which the negotiation was at the time of November 12th, which I am now discussing, we must first consider at that time what the respective positions of General Pétion and the spy were. This is what I'm going to do in order to shed light on this diabolical affair. And to firmly establish your judgment, my brothers, I must let you know what the spy's proposals to Pétion were and in what way they differed in order to reach an agreement. This was the political organization plan designed and drawn up by Mr. Malouet, Minister of the Navy in the colonies of France, the execution of which was proposed to Pétion by the spy. Now, I believe this is instructions or proposals made by the French government in the negotiation with General Alexander Pétion, the leader of the South, the leader of the Southern Republic of Haiti. The envoys for the French government, they had said this: To Pétion, Borgella, and a few others, they will obtain complete assimilation to the whites, as well as honorary advantages, as well as wealth. To the rest of the currently existing caste, they will also enjoy political rights of the whites, with a few exceptions which place them a little below. To all the rest that are less close to the whites than a pure mulatto, they will also enjoy political rights to a lesser degree. And to the remaining population that is free and fully black, they will have even fewer advantages. And to the remaining population currently involved in agriculture, they will return to their former owners. Not only all the blacks who currently work on plantations, but also bring back as many possible those who have freed themselves from this condition. Also, purge the island of all blacks that it would not be suitable to admit them among the free population, and who would be dangerous to reject them among those involved in agriculture. And also, restrict the creation of any new free blacks in the manner indicated above. Now, it goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, "You see, my brothers, this was the nature and extent of Mr. La Vestey's mission and his proposals to Pétion. The question of independence had been decided between the spy and General Pétion, which is why it was no longer discussed, as it was considered a done deal. Pétion had also agreed to share the rights of a French citizen, as Mr. La Vestey had proposed to him in his letter of September 6th. But after communicating with Mr. La Vestey in Port-au-Prince, Pétion saw in the instructions of Mr. La Vestey the difference between sharing rights as a French citizen and enjoying it in all its fullness. When he saw the differences of a little below, of a lesser measure, of a little less advantage, according to the graduations of color more or less close to white or black, he saw that he had been strangely mistaken about the proposition presented by the spy. And also, knowing the strong character of the Haitian people, who will never bow their heads under the yoke of the French, Pétion, appalled at the idea of the danger of being immediately attached to the land and to return the blacks to their former owners, he hesitated, he faltered, and sought to obtain conditions which might in time enable him to carry out his dreadful plans." Now, time out. In that section of the book, Vastey was talking about how up until this point, Pétion had no problem with the negotiations with the French. It was only until the French had introduced this color caste system into the negotiations that Pétion began to push back and hesitate. When the French ambassador, when the French spy had said, when we establish the colony, the people who will get the most privilege will be those closest to the whites, right? With the whites at the top, the octoroons and the hexadecaroons below them, and below them the mulattoes, and below them the griefs, and then at the bottom the free blacks, at the bottom the plantation blacks. So when Pétion had seen this color caste system being reintroduced, that was when he began to hesitate. Because as you can see, yes, Pétion was a quadroon, but he could not pass for white. He was unable to pass for a white man. There were others who could pass for a white man. They were white passing, but Pétion in the modern day, he resembled somebody like Drake. He resembled a light-skinned black man. So when he seen the French were introducing this color caste system, he realized that he would be unable to enjoy the so-called political rights of a French citizen due to the fact that he could not really pass for a white man under any circumstances. Now let's continue. Vastey went on to say, he faltered and hesitated and sought to obtain conditions which might in time enable him to carry out his dreadful plans. And then the instability of a provisional government, of which he was going to be the provisional leader, it still offended him. This is what we clearly discover through the course of his writings, which is easy to disentangle in the construction of the artificial sentences with double meanings, so as to not offend the people, but which, however, were perfectly understood by the spy. Like this one, for example. It is Pétion who speaks. He said this: "I want to ask your excellency if we can backtrack, whether we can part with the valuable advantages we have acquired, of freedom and in the full extent of its meaning, of the perfect equality of our rights and the guarantee that we have according to the weapons that we have in our hands." Now, hold up, time out. That must be Pétion's, 25% black side coming out. You know what I mean? He was a quadroon, so that must be his quarter black side coming out. He talking about the weapons that he got in his hand. Hold up, time out. You see, before, when he thought that he was going to enjoy rights as a French citizen, he was talking about, "Oh, your excellency, come to Port-au-Prince. We got the highest consideration and regards for you." Then when the white man was talking about, listen, it's gonna be white men at the top. It's gonna be, white passing men below them. It's gonna be mulattoes below them. It's gonna be grease. And then all of a sudden, Pétion talking about, nigga, the weapons that we got in our hand. Hold up. Let's continue. It goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, "In all this, my brothers, see carefully. Not a single word is mentioned about the recognition of our independence, which would have been so easy, so natural, and so essential to place right there. He does not tell the spy that we have obtained independence, but he told him freedom in the full extent of its meaning. And this can only mean half liberty, restricted liberty. The spy had mentioned being attached to the land, to be returned to your former owners. Few exceptions, fewer advantages. Now, at this point, it has already been proven that General Pétion had already renounced his political rights, his independence, and that he was French, and that he only asked to enjoy the civil rights of a French subject. And this is what I will victoriously prove to Pétion from his own admission. Here is how he expressed himself in the same letter that we are examining. He had said this: "The first act of the King of France upon rising to power was the oblivion of the past, to see nothing in the French but French, and to sacrifice for the peace of the world and his kingdom the most cruel memories. Should we then be the only ones excluded from obtaining it in our favor?" Now it goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, "This is word for word what Pétion said to the spy. As a Frenchman, he believes he should enjoy the same favor as the French." Now, time out. I believe this is really the biggest ideological difference at that time between the Kingdom of Haiti and the Republic of Haiti. The dignitaries of the Republic of Haiti, the Southern Republic of Haiti, they had a more assimilationist mindset, a more integrationist mindset, right? I mean, who could blame them? Like I said, the majority of the rulers of the South, they were mulattoes, quadroons, hexadecaroons, octoroons. So obviously, naturally, the French were their fathers, their grandfathers, their uncles, their half brothers, their cousins. So naturally, of course, you want to enjoy the same rights as your family members. Naturally, right? So, but on the contrast, the majority of the officials, the dignitaries to the north in the Kingdom of Haiti, they didn't have, white half brothers and, white fathers and things like that. You had a few, like the author of this book, Vastey himself was a mulatto, but obviously he did not have an integrationist, assimilationist mindset. The mulattoes who had a more dignified and prideful mindset, where they were ready to die for what they believe in and die for independence and freedom, they were up north, with the black men, right? So those who had more of an integrationist, assimilationist mindset, they joined the government of the South. And I'm not talking about the citizens. I'm talking about the leaders of those populations, right? The leaders of the South had a more integrationist mindset, and the leaders of the North had a more independent, sovereignist mindset, right? So keep in mind, we're talking about the leaders. We're not talking about the populations. I'm not saying all the citizens of the South wanted to integrate with the French. Hell no. No, that was not the case. We're talking about the leaders that were in power. Now let's continue. Vastey went on to say, "General Pétion cannot deny that in this sentence, he put himself in the same category as the French. He had requested to enjoy the same advantages as his brothers in France. This is word for word what Pétion said to the spy. As a Frenchman, he should have the same favors as the French." And then Pétion went on to say, "I'm not opposed to the idea that men can come to an understanding. They are, by the organization, made to communicate. And from this sometimes arises reconciliation. Further down, you'll see, my brothers, he said to the spy," Pétion had said, "by adopting another way of seeing things, where would it lead us? To war? An absolute war of destruction? And that would not be to the advantage of the political system that one would like to follow." Then it goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, "By Pétion's own admission, he declares that he was aware of the horrible political system of Malouette that had to be followed. He was aware of it, and he had the villainy to negotiate with the monster who had taken it upon himself to be the bearer of such infamy, and then he dared to print and attach his name to such horrors. You see, my brothers, you read them, and you suffer, and such a monster exists amongst you? Why did General Pétion stifle the knowledge of the people of these horrible instructions? It was Pétion himself who had to drown his knowledge away from the Haitians who had so-called prejudices that were deemed incompatible with the tranquility of the colony." Now, time out. You remember earlier in the book, the French had made that proposal to General Pétion, and they had said that all the men who were so-called unrepentant, the men who were unruly, who had prejudices that were incompatible with the tranquility of the colony, they had to leave when the French colony was going to be restored. AKA the black men who are ready to die to defend what they believe in, to defend their women and children. You remember what the French ambassador had said. Those men will be forced to leave when the French colony is restored. So in that section of the book, Vastey is basically saying that General Pétion had to hide this knowledge away from the so-called unruly men who had prejudices that were deemed incompatible with the tranquility of the colony, because he knew those men, they was not going to tolerate that. They was not going to tolerate that bullshit he was doing. Now let's continue. Vastey went on to say, "These men who would never want to bow to the system of slavery as it was back in 1789. It is therefore proven that General Pétion had agreed with Mr. Laveste to adopt this dreadful system, except for the modifications he demanded from the spy, to achieve the execution of their projects without violent shocks, little by little over time. This is how Pétion ended his letter to the spy. Pétion had said, "To be able to respond to your excellency in a precise manner to the main proposition contained in his official note, I have the honor to inform you that I have summoned the authorities of the Republic in Port-au-Prince for the 21st of this month to communicate it to them. I have issued an order of the day on this subject, and I will have the honor to inform you the result of this deliberation." Now, it goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, "Please note, my brothers, as Pétion abused your trust, he had to communicate to you the main proposition, but he had to let you ignore, for reasons known to him, the other circumstances and accessories of Malouet's awful political system and proposals." Now, I move on to the letter from Mr. Laves, dated from November 19th. "It will prove to you, as well as to the foreign nations who trade with us, to what extent the spy had gained influence over General Pétion. I cannot refuse the pleasure of transcribing the most insolent passages of this letter." Now, I believe this letter is coming from Mr. Laves, one of the French agents or French spies that came to the country back in 1814. And I believe this letter was sent to General Alexander Pétion. Mr. Laves had said this: "It is sweet and it is honorable to be French. Mr. President, I hope the inhabitants of this island experience the same feeling as the European compatriots. And the way in which your excellency ended your last letter, it gives me hope and happiness. However, there is one thing that poisons such a sweet sentiment: the ease and even the enthusiasm with which certain people accept and propagate all the absurd and fake news that are contrary to the interest and honor of our homeland." Oh God, they was talking about fake news back in 1814. God damn, let's continue. The French ambassador went on to say, "And who are these inventors and spreaders of this news? What are their intentions? These are the wretch, the scum, and refuse of the English and the American nations, low-level merchant clerks, men that a respectable merchant in Jamaica, in England, and in France would not admit to his table. But it seems that they are deemed as important people in this country. But I hope not for you, Mr. President. You are too enlightened to allow yourself to be influenced by their impudent nonsense, through which their intention and interest to perpetuate discord and prevent the reconciliation of the colony with the motherland is crudely apparent." Now, time out. I guess during this time, the French were not on good terms with the Americans and the British. Now, we already know about the rivalry between the British and the French. I mean, they've been going back and forth, shooting it out, fighting for centuries. We already know about that. But I guess back in 1814, I guess the French were not on good terms with the Americans either. That's what it seems like by the sentiments expressed by the French ambassador. But anyways, let's continue. The French ambassador, Mr. Laves, went on to say, "After seeing so much bloodshed, they now want to play the role of hyenas and jackals who roam around lions, tigers, and other large animals to share the remains of carcasses killed by these noble animals. This is the intention of these traitors who dare not fight openly and who stir up civil wars and internal divisions only to have the pretext of appropriating the funds and properties of the wretched people to gorge themselves on the spoils and the flesh of their victims." Now, time out. You remember after the end of the Haitian Revolution, what did the Americans do? They went and grabbed up the Louisiana territory from the French. The French was down bad. The French was fucked up. So they went and grabbed up the Louisiana territory. Could this be what the French ambassador is talking about when he says the Americans and the British are like hyenas and jackals roaming around lions and tigers to shed the remains of carcasses killed, to gorge themselves, and stirring up civil wars and internal divisions to appropriate the funds and the properties? Because you remember the Americans, they were supporting both sides during the Haitian Revolution. They were giving guns to the black men. They were supporting the white man in France. They was playing both sides. And at the end, what they do? They went and grabbed up the Louisiana territory. Maybe that's what the French ambassador is talking about. I don't know. I'm only assuming based on the information and knowledge we have of that time period. Now let's continue. The French ambassador went on to say, "Let us stay French, Mr. President. May wisdom and firmness with which you have long governed this country during the revolutionary storms still be your compass and anchor. May France and her excellent king not owe the possession of this country to necessity, but to truly French sentiments and to the loyalty of its inhabitants. Your excellency is worthy of performing this great work. May your king and your compatriots from both worlds owe you recognition." Now, time out. You see, the French ambassador is buttering up Alexander Pétion. He's showering him with praise and flattery. He's finally getting validated and acknowledged by my white brothers. He's playing, they're playing divide and conquer. Listen, you see how they're approaching General Pétion in the South. They're approaching them as brothers, as family. You're French. You're just like us. What you see when they went to the North, when they went to Kristoff in the North, when they went to the Kingdom, they were talking about, we're going to exterminate the whole race. We're going to kill everybody on the island, and we're going to bring new blacks from Africa. You see, Kristoff didn't get that same treatment. See, Kristoff was met with hostility and hatred. and threats to his life. But see, General Alexander Pétion, they treated him like a brother. And the only thing that Pétion disagreed with was the color caste system. He didn't like the fact that rights and privileges would be based on who is phenotypically the most close to white, Western European, Celtic, Germanic genetics and ancestry, because obviously General Pétion could never pass for a white man. You know, no matter what he does, he can never pass for a white man. You could look at him, you know, right in the middle. You could see that's a light skinned brother right there. You know, that's a light skinned brother. You can never be a white man. Now, it goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, I'll refrain from reflecting on this piece, having already done so in my first letter. Otherwise, I will tell you that it dishonors Pétion if he could be dishonored for having received it and responded with flattery and insignificant words. General Pétion, on his knees like a vile slave, lavished his praises and favors on Mr. La Veste, this vile spy, similar to the donkey in the fable who got drunk on the incense that was burned in front of the statue of the goddess that he carried. Now it goes back to the letter written by the French agent. This is what he had said to General Pétion, the leader of the South. With what honor, what tears of joy, I would love to meet the leaders of the government of Haiti and to place myself among the military leaders and embrace them as my comrades and brothers in arms. Man, listen, man, this white man, he was tapping into all of Pétion's insecurities. He's buttering him up and trying to flatter Pétion in the same way that Pétion was flattering him. They going back and forth flattering. Oh, your excellency, my comrades, my brothers in arms, we're French. Like, listen, man. Let's continue, man. It goes back to Vastey's writing. Vastey went on to say, this was the type of language that a French spy had dared to express towards the Haitians. After 25 years of combat, suffering, and torture, and 12 years of glorious independence, while General Pétion was covering himself with eternal infamy in Port-au-Prince, what was the conduct of the leaders, the people, and the army? They had trembled with rage. They looked on with horror as this French white man had moved through their ranks and making audacious speeches. They would have killed this enemy 100 times over without the restraint of discipline and Pétion's orders forcing them to endure the presence of this bandit. It is a tribute of praise that I'm pleased to pay to the sentiments which animate you, my brothers. You have proven to us that you would have acted just like us, with the same glory, the same energy, the same honor, if you had a legitimate king at your head. While these events took place in Port-au-Prince from November 9th to the 20th, I will inform you of what was happening in the north to give you a fair idea of things and establish a definitive judgment on the villainy of Pétion and his infamous betrayal towards the Haitian people. Here is the truth. I take you as judges. From the moment that we were informed of the arrival of the French envoys in Jamaica, our attention was turned towards our brothers from the West and the South. And though we were convinced that the mass of Haitians would never consent to alienate their freedom and independence, we nonetheless still had concerns about the machinations of the French and some of their supporters who could, through perfidious advice, lead the people into false steps. Alas, our fears were well-founded, because as you can see, Pétion had bargained with a vile spy for the civil and political rights of the Haitian people. We therefore wanted to know the determination that our brothers from the West and the South were taking in such a delicate circumstance, because no doubt you had the same anxiety as us about the situation. No doubt your attention was also turned towards your brothers in the North, and your heart stayed the same interest in our situation. The opinion that I'm pleased to form of you and of the human heart leads me to believe that I was not mistaken in my judgment. However, without yet knowing what your decision would have been, our beloved king and the honorable members of the General Council of the nation took the resolution that honor and the country demanded of us. It remained for us to send you our resolution, to give you the measure of our feelings, and to let you know our determination to live free, independent, or die. During this time, Kristoff ordered the generals of the West not to commit any act of hostility against you, because the threats to our homeland and our interests above all obliged him to take measures to come to a general meeting of all the Haitians with the aim of repelling the common enemy, who offered us the irons of slavery or death. In this circumstance, we were informed that Mr. La Veste had arrived at Port-au-Prince and that he had been received there with all military honors. We were outraged. Then the spy, Franco de Medina, fell into our hands. The horrible instructions that he carried made us see the dangers that our brothers had faced. If they were not properly enlightened on the mission of his villainy, a danger all the greater, as we already knew how the spy Mr. La Veste had been welcomed in Port-au-Prince by his accomplice, General Pétion. In vain, several people expressed to Kristoff that since General Pétion forgot what he owed to himself, to his fellow citizens, and to the country in such pressing danger, and that he had not informed us about what was happening in Port-au-Prince, then we were not to inform him either, and that we should remain silent. But Kristoff responded and said, Whatever sentiments that General Pétion feels towards me will not prevent me from enlightening my fellow citizens and preventing them from falling into the traps of our tyrants. Now, time out, man. Time out, man. Shout out to Kristoff, man. Shout out to Kristoff, man. Let's continue. In vain, again, we expressed to Kristoff that since our brothers didn't have the same concern for us that we have for them, we must not worry about these ungrateful people. Kristoff replied again to this reasoning, that they are Haitians, just like us. They are my children. Whatever their wrongs towards me, I must forget them and only think of enlightening them and saving them from the danger that threatens them. Man, even with this bloody rivalry between the Republic of the South and the Kingdom of the North, you heard what Kristoff said, man. Kristoff said, man, at the end of the day, man, they are brothers, man. They are family, man. They are brothers in all, regardless of whatever we got going on right now. That's still our family, though. You know, all the members of the Privy Council was telling Kristoff, man, fuck them boys in the South, fuck them boys in the West, man, fuck them. You know, but Kristoff was like, listen, nah, we ain't saying that about our people. We're not gonna turn our back on our people. Nah, man. Let's continue. Then Kristoff made his proclamation on November 11th, which accompanies the instructions printed from Alouette to Mr. Laveste and Medina and Draverman. We had to send you these documents. The king ordered reconnaissance to be sent near your lines, to Mibalet and Okaye, to deliver these papers to your people. Have we in these recognitions made any act of hostility against you? Will Pétion have the audacity to tell us the opposite? Were not all of the citizens of the South who fell into the hands of our patrols released with good treatment? Didn't Pétion himself, using the same means as us a few days later, did he not have one of our boats seized at Gonsalines with 4 men who were taken to Port-au-Prince? Was there any act of hostility on our part during that time? I ask you, my brothers, I have taken you as judges. Judge us and judge Pétion. You see, my brothers, the infamous behavior of Pétion and how he always manages to mislead public opinion with the lies of his agents. Think about the awful character of Pétion's immorality. You will see. It is at the moment when our generous king was concerned about your safety. It is at that moment, even when Kristoff was wondering about the peaceful means he would like to use to reunite all the Haitians and make them a people of brothers. It is at this very moment that Pétion dares to accuse him of wanting to seize your positions, while he, Pétion, at the same time of which I'm speaking to you, bargained for your dishonor with a vile spy, committed acts of aggression towards us by having members of his army take away people from Mibalet who are peacefully on our side to bring them to the territory that he currently occupies, which he was guarding with men from the boat that he had taken. And it is this same Pétion who dares to accuse the king of trickery. So much injustice, so much infamy lifts the heart of man. The more I delve into the character of Pétion, the more I find in him an unexplainable monster. The benefits, which have so much power over the hearts of other men, are for Pétion so many nourishments, which kindle the fury with which his heart is possessed, inspire him with slander, and put the dagger in his hand to assassinate his benefactors, like Satan in his revolt. Pétion only finds good in evil, peace in disorder, happiness in crime, and joy in tears. But I realize that this digression makes me forget Pétion's conduct with the spy. I'll come back to it. Remember, I had left Pétion prostrated at the feet of Mr. Laveste around November 20th, and on the 21st, he was going to consummate with this spy their horrible attack. The Most High, who directs with an invisible hand the events of this world, the Most High with who one breath overthrows the enterprises of the wicked, even when they believe themselves assured of the success. The Most High, in his infinite providence, willed that on that same Sunday, November 20th, the king's papers arrived in Port-au-Prince. Upon reading these papers, Pétion and his accomplice, Mr. Laveste, were struck as if by a clap of thunder. They remained appalled, seeing their dark plots discovered. Mr. Laveste fell into a state of fainting. General Pétion shuddered at the danger into which his perfidy had plunged him. He would have changed his feelings if his heart could change, but unable to complete his crime in his entirety, he substituted a shameful servitude for the loss of your political rights. You were to become tributary subjects to our tyrants. Now, we can wrap up part 3 right here. Part 3 right here. We're going to come back with part 4. Cash App in the description. Support the platform. Support the album, man. Support the album. We out.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife. Yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city. me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drop a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. None of your team be full of them traitors, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wifey and hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news.